Yeah, yeah. And Mark, you pointed out something very important yesterday as well, and that is in December of 2016, there were these anomalies that were occurring in and around Venice. And people were attributing them to earthquakes, but there were just some odd things that were going on in and around Venice in Italy at that time in Christmas of 2016. There's a reason. We're going to get into that in just a sec. So now they've made the plan. The plan is that they're going to strike against the cabal, and it was going to be Christmas Eve, and then this is it. The fate of all of us, whether we didn't even know this. We went to bed that night and we put our heads down on our pillows, and our fates were hanging in the balance of this team. Here's how it worked. There are 13 palaces in Venice, and each palace had its own team, and each team had its own head, and each was a separate op. So you need to sort of recognize that what happened that night wasn't just one op, it was 13 ops. And so each of these 13 ops had to succeed. They had to succeed because if you let one of these families get away, they know where everything is. They know where the underground bases are. They know where the safest place for them is. They know where their technology is. They know where to go to get back at those that have done this. So it's an incredible evening. You just need to wrap your minds around this because all 13 of the families had to be taken down. So this is where we sort of find ourselves. And now the question is that many of you must be asking yourselves at this point is that where does the authority come from? Is this just a renegade act, or does this act of the ages, does this have any kind of legal basis within this current system of law for the military to do this? And the key is yes. And I was explaining this to Mark yesterday, and here's how it works. Because of 9/11, once again, they will always go too far, and they will always end up spiting themselves in their desire for ultimate control. They'll always lose. The left brain, this left-hand path, these demons, these anti-God, demonic, satanic souls will always lose because they'll always end up spiting themselves because they go too far. 9/11, it was their downfall. They didn't realize this at the time. They went too far. They made enemies and they exposed themselves on 9/11. So in the weeks following 9/11, the puppet president, George Walker Bush, created this massive document in the night, right? Every congressman and senator still remembers overnight this gigantic document being dumped on their doorstep, and they said you have to vote on this in a week, and if you don't vote for this, you're a traitor. Wow. And so none of them read it, and it was the Patriot Act. And here's what the Patriot Act does. It gives the President of the United States the ability to subvert the Constitution in any moment that a clear and present danger exists to the sovereignty of the United States of America from foreign adversaries or domestic traitors. They wrote this. They did this to themselves. Trump and the military are acting on the fuel that these demons did to themselves because they were so sure that they were in control. They were so sure of their plan. Clintons, to the Bushes, to the Obamas, to Hillary, to her, to it, whatever she is. That was always the plan. They were so sure in their plan. So the Patriot Act is their undoing, and they couldn't see this. So that's what happened. And what the military did in the days before, you talk about whether you believe in God or not. There has to be a lot of God that's working to ensure that President Obama listened to his military advisors and enacted the Patriot Act in the days before December 24th, 2016, because there were some odd things happening in and around Venice. Everybody in the cabal, the minions, they know what Venice is. They know what Venice represents. So Obama, under the Patriot Act, evoked a section of it and created, once again, military rule, martial law. And this was it. Then the green light was given. The plan was set. The planes were in motion. The troops were being sent. They went to Germany first. They came and surrounded the area. Each had their own sort of base that they took off from in and surrounding Venice, and they all came in from different directions, and they all had their individual targets, 13 targets. The plan was set, and then it happened. And I want to everyone to think back to this movie, and I think most of you know that I have gone out of my way to show you that Kevin Costner is not one of these Hollywood demons, and that Costner's movies, from Dances with Wolves through everything that he's put his own money up to do, have constantly been telling this story, like Waterworld, which was telling you the Maritime Admiralty law, and that, you know, the Phoenicians of the sea, the pirates of the sea are in control, and then the Postman, and how the U.S. Constitution was literally hidden within the Postmaster General's office, and that we've been living a corporation. The United States from 1871 onwards has been a corporation. It hasn't been a republic until Trump and the Q team came back in. I mean, Costner's movies are foreshadowing all this stuff. Okay, in 2001, he did the movie 13 Days, which shows President Kennedy and his brother Bobby essentially being alone with their childhood friend, which is the character that Kevin Costner played in the movie, and that they were surrounded by enemies and everyone trying to get them into this war through Cuba with Russia, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And there is an incredible scene in that movie, and I want to just bring it up here right now because this moment had to have existed. And 107, in one of his presentations about 4 months ago, literally talked about this night in Venice, and he talked about this kind of speech, and he talked about this necessity for having to win, and that failure was not an option, because the result, we would have been exterminated. So in the movie, the American Joint Chiefs of Staff pushed President Kennedy into another one of these protocols, and that is, before they make a determination of what to do, they have to send another jet plane to take one more run over Cuba and to verify or not with these cameras whether the missile silos were operational or not. And so this Air Force colonel was asked to do this mission, and before he left, Kevin Costner's character Billy O'Donnell from the White House team with the two Kennedy brothers contacted this Air Force colonel and said to him that you cannot fail, your mission must succeed. And he said, well, sir, thank you very much, you know, and he said, I'll do everything I can. But he said, you know, you do know that there will be eyes on me, and I will attract fire. And he said, I can't guarantee you that I won't get shot or that I won't get shot down, but I'll try my best. And Kevin Costner goes, no, you're not hearing me. You cannot fail. You cannot get shot down. You can't, because if you do, it will set off a series of events that will end in the destruction of mankind as we know it. You cannot fail. And so what I want all of you to know is that this is the speech likely that President Trump gave to everyone in those wee hours the night before, saying to everyone that failure is not an option. Because if we fail, and 107 made this so clear in his presentation, their families would have been wiped out immediately, right away. And then they would have moved quickly with the Georgia Guidestone protocols, and there would have been this FEMA camp reality where we were being taken away and then just virtually exterminated in mass numbers, leaving these 500 million blood donors. Okay, so this is the reality. They could not fail. If they failed, then we all were going down for the count. So
and that's going to make one hell of a movie one day. The telling of that story.
It is, and they've made it clear that they're going to. They made it clear that they recorded everything, so that there's going to be real footage from this event, and that it is going to become the movie of all time, and in particular this night. So with everything hanging in the balance, they struck. Now remember, they struck through the military, not President Trump, because he was the president-elect, but he was not the sitting president. This was a military operation, and you need to know that, because in terms of what's coming tomorrow and the next day, what's coming for January 6th in this massive peaceful march that President Trump has called, and then in preparation for something being in place at 12:01 p.m. on January 20th, that it has to be military. It has to be military, because the military is what brought this into operation, and it's the military that needs to end this. So everything that has happened is all part of this movie to show you that the Supreme Court is compromised. All the stuff coming out about Chief Justice Roberts right now is showing you that the highest court of the land is completely compromised. Every state is completely compromised. So there's no other alternative. They have to go through the military. The military started this with this operation, and the military needs to complete this at the end. That's where we're headed. We're days away. Don't be shocked or surprised by what's coming. It has to be this way. It has to.
The wait has been absolute torture for people that have been following this one closely, because we've had various dates given. Oh, this is going to happen, and hold tight. It's coming next Tuesday. It's coming next week. And the cans got kicked further and further down the road. And I think it's taken many of us by surprise how long this whole thing is being dragged out. But it has to reach a conclusion soon. We're getting into January. There's got to be a resolution by the 20th at the latest, as you said. But I think the early days of January, at last, after this mind-numbingly torturous wait, we're going to see some things start to happen.
That's right. Exactly, Mark. And remember, for everyone who's listening in the rest of the world, it has to happen in the United States first. There's a whole reason to all of this, because the United States was always their prized possession of what they needed to control. So it's always been that way. So for all of you who are waiting as best you can in the United Kingdom, you know that your freedom will be coming soon. Because again, these three cities, Washington, D.C., London, and Rome, are these three independent worlds unto themselves, and they have to be dealt with first. So what's coming for London will be coming very soon, and the same for Rome after what occurs. But it has to start in the United States first. Until it happens in the U.S., it will not happen in any other nation. It won't. But once it does, it will be like dominoes. So once one country falls, that's what is just gonna. People will never forget this, because the moment that the United Kingdom falls and goes back into the hands of the people, Watch what happens the next day with France, and watch what happens the next day with the North countries. They're all going to collapse right to
Isn't it interesting that many of these nations you've just mentioned have been placed back into very harsh,
Yes.
severe lockdowns in the last few days? So in the UK yesterday, we had Boris Johnson popping up and saying, oh, back into tier 4, folks, and everything's locked down again and closing down the schools. And yet the same thing has been happening. I've had contact from people in Italy and Austria, Germany. All these nations are getting locked down once again at this time, all at the same time. It's as if it's in preparation for something now.
That's right.
And it hasn't happened that way.
Yeah, and I said to you yesterday, for everyone, thank you for bringing that up, Mark, because everyone to just be patient with this last round. And yes, they hijacked everything. Christmas now at the last second when he said he wouldn't, then at the last second, and then like Mark said, with what came yesterday or the day before.
They just screwed up New Year's Eve. Basically, they've put a ban on New Year's Eve parties. You can't celebrate, so they've ruined everything this year, traumatized us. But it's got to be the home run now. It's got to be.
It has to. And also notice how these little rats always do this at the last second, right? So Boris Johnson even said that I would never take Christmas away from you and your families. And then it's like, I'm taking Christmas away from you and your families. Rats, liars. That's why it's a movie. It has to play this way. He has to be exposed for what he is. Liar.
Trump even criticized Johnson on Twitter. He said, you know, the cure shouldn't be harsher than the cause, or words to that effect. You know,
yep.
He wasn't happy with the way Johnson was handling the situation in the UK.
Yeah, no, and of course it's just all the movie, and it has to play out. And that is a message to the British people saying that America is watching, that they know that they're all in with what happens with Great Britain. It has to become great again, and it can only become great again when these demons of the minions of the cabal are no more. And so you're high on the list. They're coming for London, and therefore all of England and all of the United Kingdom right after. So the plan is in place. The pieces are set, and it will move, and it will move fast, but it has to start in the States first. It has to. So with this plan, again, failure was not an option. And then through the mercy of of God, all 13 special ops worked. All 13 homes were secured. They were given, I don't know the details on this, but they were given, the troops, the special op troops on the ground were given the green light to shoot on site. Shoot first, ask questions later. This plan had to work. It was hopefully to capture as many people as possible alive, but not to risk the outcome. So all of the special op troops were given the order to shoot on site, and because they had to win. So just so you know that aspect as well.
Do we know if they captured anyone, or was everyone just taken out?
They did. There actually ended up being a mass capitulation, and that actually was really only the outer guards, and most were taken out by special op tactics, very silently and quietly, to be able to gain access into the perimeter of these fortresses. And so there was a lot less killing than I think they thought was going to be necessary. So yes, Mark, they took virtually everyone alive, and they interrogated everyone. And so it has just been this process of getting as much knowledge from them, information from them as can be trusted. So they're liars. And so the process is you're trying to compare what you're hearing from one family of liars to another family of liars to try to get to the bottom. Okay. So at the end of the day, what they were most concerned about were two things. One, these access to technology sites, these locations where their advanced technology existed, and two were sites for children. Where were they collecting? Where were these major routing centers where were these massive adrenochrome centers being done? And it shouldn't surprise anyone that Switzerland and what exists under Switzerland and CERN is all about this deep science, learning to master this process of extracting the adrenals and the pineal and pituitary glands and processing this substance to make it as pure as potent as possible. So those were the two major concerns. Okay, so they've taken down the head of the cabal. Now, the next thing that happened is that the minions are wondering why over the next few days as we approach New Year's, why they're not getting their phone calls, and that their regular contacts from these Jesuits, which are the go-between the 13 families and the minions, are the Jesuits. The Jesuits, you need to know this, the Jesuits run virtually everything. The world is run by a mafia. The Jesuits are the mafia. Remember, who are the Jesuits? That's the order of Jesus. So how much do they fear the power of Jesus Christ and Christ consciousness within us? They put that in the hands of the Jesuits, and the Jesuits, there's no darker, more evil, disgusting, vile force in the history of mankind than the Jesuits. They are it. They're scum of the earth. And they've been in charge, and they've ruled the world in a hateful, ugly way for 100 years. That's the fact. That's the reality. So when these Jesuits were not making their calls, when the Jesuits were not contacting the minions with what to do, the minions began to panic. What's going on? How come? And then they began to make calls, and everyone was now in a full out panic because clearly something happened. Clearly something happened. And then this is essentially what has played out. Now, the Trump team acted, and the military acted very, very quickly. So in the days after the takedown of the cabal, what happened is that mass arrests took place. Okay, so then this is the next big thing. So from late December through January and February and into early March, as quickly as they could, was this concentrated earth-wide effort to arrest all notable minions connected to the cabal. So this was virtually every politician in the world, every corporate head or heads of all of these major corporations. This is all of the leaders of all of these international agencies like the United Nations, like the EU, like the World Health Organization, everything, UNICEF, the Red Cross, everything.
The theme of mass arrests is something that David Wilcock has been talking about for years, and Benjamin Fulford. I remember those guys back in 2007, 2008, that kind of time frame on Red Ice Radio talking about, mass arrests are imminent of Catholic priests and royals and politicians. And I took that with a pinch of salt, and of course it didn't come to pass at that time. So do you feel those guys had some advanced knowledge of this narrative now, all those years back, or was it just an unlucky guess which had no foundation to it? Because the theme of what they were talking about all the way back then is the same as what you're saying now. But like 12, 13 years have passed in between them.
Yeah, the thing is that the cabal have always been aware that this was going to happen to them. They've always been aware that that an attempt through this they thought they had stopped it with John F. Kennedy, that this white-hatted angel would come along and attempt to bring them down. And this would,
in the Wilcock version, it was Chinese triad troops that were supposed to be undertaking the arrests.
That's right. So the question, and I don't want to cast aspersions, that's not my job to here, but the question is that I think that they did probably have some inkling as to what there was a plan in place. But the question is, from what side? What side? Because the cabal has long been aware and preparing for a Christ-like figure, and through the power of God to bring them down, because they felt that was the only way they could be brought down, was by acts of God, which is why they do what they do, which is always to offer us consent. They have to get our consent, which absolves them, and then they're not fearing the punishment from God. So the question would be, with the people that you mentioned, is where did they hear this from? Did they hear this from the Q team? Unlikely, because what we have come to learn firsthand is that this is a closed off organization, that this is tight.
For anyone new to you and your information that might have just discovered my channel or your channel or our work, an important point to emphasize here is that you don't have any inside intel to the Q team. And as far as you're concerned, all these talking heads on YouTube, none of them do, because they don't share information in that way. So everything that you put out is what you've pieced together yourself from information that's available, that's in the public domain, it's on the internet, but you're doing your Sherlock Holmes act and just gathering all the evidence and coming up with these conclusions. That's the process that you use, for anyone that might be wondering.
Yeah, that's 100% so, Mark, and it's always been the case. Now, the thing about the Q team is that this has always been about a grassroots movement. They have not reached out to big names and celebrities and whatnot to to kind of lead the way, or to give them position in that sense, or to be their messengers. Really hasn't been that way. It's been key players within the movement. So you see people like, Lynn Wood, who's, one of Trump's legal team. And now he's tweeting and posting in a very meaningful way and stuff. So there are actual people that are attached to things. But what they've always done and wanted is this grassroots movement. So when there are those of us that have really taken this seriously and have put the work into it and have collected the clues that they've put out there, especially through the Q posts. The Q posts are very, very, very important. They are so layered with coded messages, and you really can't get most of the messages until more messages come out, until more events play out. And then suddenly you're going, wow, that reminds me of a post from 2 years ago. Then you need to go back to that Q drop and look at it, and then suddenly it starts to make sense. But it didn't make sense at the time because that part of the story had not been revealed. So it's just an ongoing process. That's why it's taken me this long. We're at the end of this process. We're at the end of 2020, and we're doing the show on New Year's Eve. And I couldn't have done it sooner because it has taken so much time and effort and research to be able to piece these things together. And then what you do is, what I've done is I've put certain theories, positive theories out there in certain channels. Now, that's just social media. So that's within certain people on Twitter, certain people on Facebook. And what you do is you posit these theories, and then you just kind of see what the response is. And so all along through this one, I've received very, very positive, but not confirmations. They'll never confirm any of these things, but very positive responses to it. And then some information, a whole series of things were released about 3 weeks ago for everyone. They just put it out there for everyone. Most people wouldn't know what these things refer to or related to, but if you've been doing the research and the work, then you know. So essentially, these things are put out there to help those of us that are doing this work. And these are the last pieces, Mark, that I needed to be able to say that there's a show here, there's an incredibly important show here, and I can piece together how all of this has gone on and how all of this works. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up. It's a heck of a process.
Such a world of difference between what the average normie has been experiencing this year, scurrying around in a mask, terrified that some mutant strain of a virus could attack them any moment. Clouds of it as they walk down the street, and believing that their government just wants to keep them safe because they're lovely people. They just don't want them to come to any harm. That's the normie's view of what's been going on. Contrast that with what you're saying has really been going on this year. And for any truther or alternative researcher, we know there's so much more to this than a virus, a pandemic, which isn't one. When the truth of what's really been going on and what this scamdemic has really been all about breaks surface, millions, if not billions of people are going to literally lose their minds.
Yeah.
Their whole world is going to be shattered. And that's got to be coming. That's got to be coming soon.
Yeah, and again, I think that another reason why this podcast probably very naturally only happened today is because a whole weight of events needed to occur for people to be able to just process what you and I are sharing today. The fact that your reality has played out in a literal movie for the last 4 years, and no single person anywhere on this earth has been exempt from this movie is stunning information.
But none of what's being done is going to have any real value because it won't be universally recognized unless the poison and the venom and the lies of the mainstream media is brought to an end. Because so many people will only believe something if it comes through the mainstream media. And if the mainstream media isn't covering it, they won't give it any credibility at all. So there has to be a mechanism for taking down the mainstream media machine, the mind control, or everything is doomed to failure because people just won't accept that it's been happening. They won't have any comprehension of what's been going on, what was at stake, and what's to come.
Yeah, again, 100% accurate, Mark. And that's why the election fraud is what they chose to do. So what Mark was saying earlier about, we did that big live show on election night, and Mark was part of the show. And when Mark woke up early to be on the show, he was shocked to see. But like we said going into it, there were always two possibilities for that election. One that would be this gift to all of the Trump supporters and Q team over the years for all the work and dedication that they've done. And this would be this inauguration of goodliness and godliness into the world, or it was going to be used as the vehicle to complete the takedown. And like Mark said, if the takedown does not involve the mainstream media, then there is no real takedown, because you're just going to continue to have a group of people who will just live in complete denial to everything that's been going around them, and then blame it on a renegade, crazed, lunatic president that's just desperately trying to stay in power. But that's why at the end of the show today, I'll be unveiling the Trump card, because this is the Trump card that is the answer to that reality. Because that's a great point to bring up. And there is an answer, and it is the Trump card, and it's going to be the last card that will be played in this game, in this movie. So
going out 2020 with a bang.
Yeah.
So it seems the best benefit, the best tool that Trump has on his side is the force of the military. But the best tool that the cabal has is still the mainstream media, because they've got that propaganda, that mind control machine, and that's working wonders for them. And it has to go.
Yeah,
like we just said.
Yeah, exactly. That these are the two opposing forces, and so what you see, everyone, is that their weapon has always been of the mind. Right? That's what the mainstream media is. It's entertainment. That's why in all these words that deal with the media, it's always mente in Latin and Greek is mind. It's always about controlling your mind. World War III is the war for your mind. hey, there's no way to defend, there's no way to deny that, or that theory that we just posited, because look at the coronavirus and the wearing of masks, and there's nothing. There's nothing. Again, go back to this, folks, and you can do your own research on it. In the year 2020, while they have all these statistics of people dying from the COVID, suddenly there's no cancer, there's no common cold, and there's no influenza. And the influenza numbers annually are greater than what they have lied about and expanded for the numbers of COVID. That just every single year, the influenza numbers are greater than this year's COVID. But this is a massive global pandemic, and there's been no incidents of cancer this year or so far, and the common cold or the influenza. No, it's just all COVID. So again, all you have to do is wrap your minds around that all of these other diseases have taken the year off because they're terrified of the COVID as well. So that's the great thing about what Mark has always shown. The COVID is so powerful that it scares other diseases, and it says, hey, get out of town. This is That's my right. game. This is my turf. Get out of here, cancer.
So I'm in charge. Pneumonia. Now, let's just recap on the circumstances in which the COVID scamdemic was launched. So this was put out there by the cabal as a smokescreen for all the stuff that was going on, so it could be concealed. And it was also their last-ditch desperate attempt to control everyone and lock everyone down and introduce this Chinese-style communism, which has been sneaking in by the back door. Is that an accurate assessment of what you feel is going on? And then Trump and the Q team seized COVID as an opportunity that they could turn to their advantage and get all their work done under the cover of it.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment?
That, of course, is what it looked like when everything was playing out at the beginning of the year. And that's how we saw things at the beginning of the year. But now that you see the fullness and the wholeness and the richness of this plan, and that it's a 4-year-long movie, then that, of course, means that, yes, while this was the plan, should she ever lose, it's their sort of last-ditch effort plan. The fact of the matter is, this had to be allowed to be unveiled by President Trump and the Q team. So
it's a teaser for what could have happened.
That's right. And again, so some people will hear that and go, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. Why would they do this? If what you say is true and they've taken control and power, they've cut the head of the Hydra off, then why in these last 4 years haven't we just had mop up and truth and coming together and peace of mind? And if there is such a thing as Nasara and all of this wealth, if the Queen's gold has all been taken, for example, back into these treasuries, then why aren't we sharing some of this money and stuff? And these are all very, very valid points and very, very valid questions to be asking and to be considering. The fact of the matter is that we all have played a role in what's gone on. And it's all understandable because they attack us from birth. And our parents were in on it because they were attacked from birth. So ultimately, they're to blame, but we've played a role in allowing them the kind of power that they now have, because we've just capitulated left, right, and center the whole way along. Every single year. It's just like with 9/11, and then what they did at the airports, that was a test for COVID, and to see how far they could push us with us just accepting it. And I think they were in shock at how ready, willing, and able people were to allow themselves to be frisked. And remember, the people that they were hiring to play these roles in the airports to get in your face, and they were told to be as unpolite, aggressive, rude, and outright vile. They were hired on that basis. So there's no accident that airport security during the post 9/11 era has just been horrific. They were paid to be horrific by the cabal. It's pushing us as far as we can be pushed to a breaking point, and we didn't break. That's the thing. So they're going.
This year has been Act 2. Yeah, another objection that people have to the scamdemic being allowed to unroll the way it has is the high body count that it's brought. We discussed this off air yesterday in our brief chat. You know, the suicide count. How many people have just not been able to cope with the loneliness, the desolation of lockdowns, the trauma of how society has changed, how scary it is to see people scurrying about in masks. People have been taking their own lives because of this. Then there are people that have not been able to get surgery for other conditions because they're being turned away from hospitals. There's people that have lost their businesses, their livelihoods, everything they've ever worked for. They've just seen crumble and fail through no fault of their own. And it seems that's a lot of collateral damage that's had to be factored into the thing. It's very unfortunate that this has happened. But just to play devil's advocate for a minute, I threw a few of these questions into the last show that we did. I just wanted to read out an excerpt from an email that a friend sent to me, and I'll get your response to this. But it reads, "It's been said that people have to experience the evil in order to wake up. It's not enough to just tell them about it. But how much more do people need to see? Look how far we've been pushed, provoked and prodded. Anyone who hasn't woken up yet and realized that this is nothing about keeping us safe from a virus is beyond hope. They're never going to wake up. Any further pushing and displays of evil is just going to torture those who've already seen it yet further." And just to continue, the plan is supposed to be that Trump could have stopped the scamdemic anytime he'd liked, but is allowing it to roll out so people experience it before he exposes it. But it does seem crazy he's allowing it to go this far and is still playing along. How the fuck are normies supposed to wake up when he is playing along? He's giving validity to the plan by claiming that he caught COVID. He's now talking about vaccines as well. He may well be talking in code, but most people don't see it. How can he expect a mass awakening when the media was used to mind control, using KGB mind control tactics, and then expect people to suddenly wake up? I think you get the gist of where this person is going there. I'll get your response to that.
Yeah, and again, it's a great question. These are all very, very fair, important questions to be asking here. The response to all of this is always the one thing, which is that, remember, had they not intercepted this, then this was our reality. And there are no two ways about it. And so then their goal was to move to the protocols of the Georgia Guidestones as quickly as possible. So we see this playing out. So in the best response to that is we see this playing out in those documents that were leaked from the Liberal caucus meeting in early November, I think late October of 2020 from Justin Trudeau's Liberal caucus. And in the minutes that were leaked out of there, they laid out the plan. And of course, it's the plan for Canada. But of course, this was also therefore going to be the plan for virtually every other country as well. And what
FEMA camps, guillotines, all sorts.
Incredible, because again, I'm Canadian, and our background is so peaceful, just so laid back that it can't happen here. Canada would be the last place it would happen to. But this was the plan all along, is to lull us into sense of complacency and sleep, to be bought up by China, to be used as a marshalling ground for the invasion of the United States by the Chinese and all of these underground tunnels. It's just incredible. Canada was basically being turned into, post World War II, a Trojan horse for the secretive invasion of the United States by the Chinese, which is why, as we talked yesterday, the entire Obama presidency was all about get the guns, Sandy hoax, and everywhere you looked in America, there's another nightclub shooting, and everything was designed to take the guns away. So you take the guns away, Barack Obama, and then Obama was giving the guns to all of these terrorist organizations in the world, including Antifa. So you see how well planned they are? So, likely, they weren't going to use this potentially at all, or they would only use it in 2020. But here they are, way back,
But
from.
American patriots don't give up their guns easy, do they?
And
As they discovered.
and thank God, that they don't. Thank God that there's that independent spirit that exists there, that has fought this tooth and nail, because it didn't work, and they had to stop at a certain point, because these false flags were becoming so evident that they were fake, because of the same actors being regurgitated, and people like yourself pointing that out again and again and again in your posts and stuff, showing this, that that they had to back off. They couldn't do more, because the same actors were now being called. That's the lady from the Boston Marathon. She played the teacher who was shot in the head at Sandy Hook, and she also played. So they were exposed, and they had to back off of those things, because of the patriots like yourself that are awake, and we're fighting this every step of the way. So we are in a reality where you have to see it to believe it. You cannot be told. And of course, how are you going to tell anyone? What did Trump demonstrate? Why did Trump turn his presidency into a Twitter account, right? The reason being is to, one, have direct access for the truth to get out there, because it can't in the fake news. I mean, wow, Donald Trump's the first person to ever do that. And just to say the news is fake news, it's just completely fake. So then his presidency was run through Twitter. And then Twitter completely brutalized his Twitter account and eventually shut it down, and they suppressed his stuff. And then this is the birth of all of these fact checkers, which when you find out who these people are, you're going to be angry. You're going to be really, really angry about these fact checkers. They're just little demons. They're not fact checking anything. They're just saying it, and then they're supported by another fact checker site, which they're all the same. So you have to see it to believe it, is the big thing. But like we saw with regard to Canada, this plan was moving very fast, was designed within like, just look at what they said with Canada. Within months, people were in FEMA camps. And then they were simply saying that the only way to get out of these FEMA camps would be to sign up to this false Jasara, this false golden, the gift of the golden goose, that they were going to unveil this new world order. And remember what was unveiled, and this is how they would then make the sale of Canada to China legal in their system, is because for Canadians to be able to get out of these FEMA camps, one, they had to sign these oath cards swearing never to rise up against the government. And then two, the government was going to let them out and release all COVID restriction bans against them. Remember, at this point, Canada was going to be completely locked down. People weren't even going to be able to get out of cities, let alone provinces, or leave the country at all. And they were talking about major cities quadranting them off: northeast, northwest, southwest, southeast, and people were going to be forced to stay in those areas. And the only way out was through this new process. And this was, they were going to give everyone in Canada a universal living wage. And apparently the numbers were going to be attractive, so that people were going to go, wow, like that's actually pretty darn good. So for the rest of their lives, every single month, a universal living wage. And then secondly, all their debt was going to be wiped out. So any debt that you previously had, no matter what it was going to be taken away. All Canadians had to do to receive all of these gifts, including the travel ban being lifted upon them. So magically, the COVID is no longer a problem for them, were two things. One, they would have to agree to be vaccinated and chipped, because the moving forward was all about tracking people. And then the second aspect of this was they had to give up ownership of all assets. And you see, that's where then Trudeau's private sale of Canada to China could then legally have weight to it. And China would have then literally owned Canada. And then they would have come in and they would have put Canadians back into concentration camps, regardless of whatever they signed previously. And then this invasion, the Trojan horse, would have come to a gunless America. Had Obama had his way and had Xi won, then this was the plan. This was what was coming. So it's so palpable, it's so real, it's so horrific, and we are so complicit with it. Then you have to see this play out. And there's no other way than to have a movie, because they control the mainstream media. And it's because us, it's what better way to express this and explain this than this? It's because the vast majority of us say that the 6 o'clock news is the truth, or the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the LA Times, the combination of those three papers, that's the truth. Sure, they lied to us about this, that, and the other thing, but surely the news is real. The news is telling you the truth, and that's the truth. So if it's not being talked about on a Sunday morning talking head show, if it's not on those three newspapers, and if it's not on the 6 o'clock news, it isn't real. And so then you say to yourself, then how do you awaken people if that's all they do? Because if Trump suddenly took down the mainstream media, that's a massive act. That's where people essentially allow themselves to live in complete distraction, The Walking Dead. And if they took that down, there would be so many Americans that would be on the doorstep of the White House looking to take Donald Trump down and to hang him for treason for taking away their TV. Don't take my TV away. Don't take my Hollywood away. Don't do this. So people are angry at Trump. They're angry at the Q team for allowing these things to play out. But the fact of the matter is, and I was explaining this to you yesterday, you take the head of the beast off, and then for 4 years, what's left is the body. And they have taken a fine-tooth comb through the hair of the beast, and they have been scurrying back and forth to find every little tick, polytick, every little source of mange, every source of disease and illness. They've been combing through the carcass of the Hydra, and they've been searching for sleeper cells, underground cells, underground agencies, other agencies that they weren't aware of that have been deep state but have been deep undercover. All of this is also necessary because what they want to do now is end this for good. They don't want this to reappear 10 years from now or 20 years from now. So one of the reasons why this is allowed to play out and taking as long as it is to get as many of these sleeper cells as possible. Remember, and people don't give Trump credit for this, but remember when it was announced that Trump essentially had taken down, and he did, this incredible criminal network that was responsible for so much crime all through North America and assassinations, killings. It's this group called MS-13. And the MS-13 group, which was started by the cabal, funded by Barack Obama, and weaponized by Barack Obama's presidency, this particular group was running amok, and they were largely a lot of these crisis actors that were playing virtual roles, and they were responsible for killings. And again, always to make society look as dangerous and as ugly as possible. So they were kind of like a roving hit squad for the cabal and for the Obama presidency. And Trump had to take these people down in plain sight. You have to allow this plan to play itself out for people to see it, but you also have to allow this play out to be able to capture everyone. And if that isn't enough for you, remember, what's coming with our children, this truth about what they've been doing to our kids and how expansive this is, how many kids this has involved. And now all this stuff is starting to come out, right? All the stuff is starting to come out now about Walmart, through the series that we did with you on the show after the takedown of the cabal from A to Z, when Colleen and I did the part 3, which is, right here, right now. And it focused on Epstein Island, and then Wuhan, China, and then the new Silk Road that runs all the way to Venice. And it was all about the children, and it was all about how China had been turned into a production facility for children and the harvesting of adrenochrome. And that Walmart, it was never created to sell you consumer goods and make a profit. That's what it wasn't created for. That it was created as subterfuge, as a plausible reason to be able to have this massive shipping of live children around the world, going into major centers, and nobody saying anything because it's a Walmart ship. It's Maersk shipping. Walmart purchased Maersk shipping to be able to ship all of their products. But what was in these products, what were on these ships, is again the furniture and all the stuff that was China, 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 China. There's no company in history that has a greater connection to China than Walmart. And it was about trafficking children, in particular, trafficking human beings, children, and adrenochrome. And then what do we reveal to everyone in that show? That this is where when Walmart and Maersk shipping could not keep up with the demands for children and adrenochrome, then you had the Clinton Foundation buying up and creating Evergreen Shipping. What was Hillary Clinton's Secret Service code name while she was in the White House with Bill Clinton? Her name was Evergreen. Evergreen Shipping for dear Hillary. And what did Evergreen Shipping specialize in? Live art. And because they specialized in ship live art, they got around customs officials. So this is how Evergreen sold their shipping to clients around the world for these exorbitant prices, is because you could be guaranteed that your shipments of live art were going to get there on time and without those pesky inspections from custom duty officers and whatnot, because they're shipping live art. And suddenly, somehow, live art means that, hey, back off, we don't check, and again. So Evergreen Shipping and these, they put it in plain sight, the shipping of live children around the world. So all of this stuff has to come out, and it's not going to be revealed on the nightly news, in the papers, with the mainstream media, because they're complicit with all of this. So they had to be taken down. And then the election fraud of 2020 is how you take them down, because big tech, the mainstream media, and the Democrat Party are all three together as one, controlled by China, who's controlled by the cabal. And this is all that's going to be revealed in the coming weeks and months, is this incredible connection between the Democratic Party, between virtually every sort of major institution of organized society, and the mainstream media and big tech, all to China, all to the cabal, and that's how they rule the world. And then, boom, the veneer falls, and people are left going, "Yike! Wow!"
And as we said yesterday, the likes of us are going to be the cleanup crew, the mop-up crew for people when they just completely freak out and lose their minds, because we've been through our dark night of the soul. With me, it was 10 years ago when I learned about trauma-based mind control and all the horrors of satanic ritual abuse and all this. Been there, been through that darkness. other people, most people have no comprehension of this stuff going on, and they're going to have to deal with this, and they're going to need support, they're going to need therapy, they're going to need guidance. That's where the likes of us are going to be lent upon to offer that. So if we're watching a movie play out in reverse, we must be close to the opening credits right now. And a date that I hear being bandied about is January 6th. So January 6th is the 12th night of Christmas. It's actually the date on which Christmas is celebrated in certain Middle Eastern nations. And there seems to be a lot pinned on January the 6th, right? Maybe that's when the opening titles will play.